Shiny Pokemon are so awesome, but we all know the best shinies are the ones that can be found on the gray scale, specifically the ends. Black and white shinies are some of the greatest looking shinies we've ever gotten. Take any Pokemon and make its color palette either of these two, and it slaps. So, in honor of the remakes of Pokemon Black and White, I figured what better way to celebrate than catching every black and white shiny I can. Hold up, they announced what? So, to start off this marvelous journey, why not go for one of my favorite Pokemon introduced in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet? That being the silly squid. Not only is Toedscool a really funny guy, but they just went so unbelievably hard with its shiny. And lucky for me, there's a plethora of Toedscool outbreaks going on most of the time. You know, if you're into that sort of thing. Sorry to all my full odds enjoyers. So I had my favorite guy Swampert give my other favorite guy Mushroom the business. And I also made myself a sandwich to increase my shiny odds even further. Once again, sorry to all the full odds enjoyers. I'm a busy guy, so I can't spend all day looking for these different colored creatures. Anyways, I spent the next hour or so looking for this. Another great aspect about hunting black and white shinies is that they usually stick out like it's nobody's business. Usually. But we'll get to that later. Since we're hunting some of my favorite shinies today, I also figured I should catch them in some of my favorite Pokeballs. And for white shinies, the honor obviously goes to the Premier Ball. One down and who knows how many left to go. But for our next target, I used every wrinkle on my little brain in order to remember there's another ground type I can hunt that is also one of these two colors we're looking for. Numel. Yippee! Yep, that's shiny Numel. Okay, not Numel, but Numel's older brother. The only problem is that Numel's shiny is kinda cheeks, like we already saw. And in this area, only one Camerupt spawns for every 4 Numel. So we were gonna have to keep our eyes peeled to make sure we don't miss the shiny. And although it did take a bit of time, when the shiny did appear, I was able to spot it. I guess you could say I'm kind of a pro gamer, or something. Numel's shiny may be doo-doo, but since we're evolving it, I caught it in a luxury ball, as I will for all my black shinies. And one rare candy later, we had this beauty. Now, believe it or not, there is a third ground type we're going to be catching. I know, crazy. Except this one is a pile of sand. And believe it or not, I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating, and it gets everywhere. Except this pile of sand is Sandygast, and I adore Sandygast. And something new I learned during this hunt is that the upper parts of the trees on the beaches in these games don't have collision. Another little thing in Scarlet and Violet that they must have done to save time. And hopefully the next Pokemon game will have more time in the oven. Please be good, please be good, please be good, please be good, please be good. Anyways, Sandygast continues to be one of the easiest hunts in Scarlet and Violet. And how could you not love this shiny? It's funny because I just caught a Sandygast in a recent video, and I claimed the Ultra Ball was the perfect combo for this shiny. But I did also mention I kinda wanted to catch it in a Moon Ball, since it matches all 3 colors of shiny Sandygast. So that's what I did. A luxury ball. As I will for all my black shinies. A luxury ball. As I will for all my black shinies. So only 3 shinies into this adventure, and I've already lied to you. Sandygast's Evo Palosand also has a fantastic black shiny, but I decided to keep it as a Sandygast to better match the ball. After all that fun on the beach, it was time to take a quick trip over to Kitakami to visit the illustrious Timeless Woods, where there just so happened to be a Morgrem outbreak. Now, Morgrem's shiny has a lot of color in it, white being one of them, but the main color is definitely blue. So maybe not technically a white shiny, but in classic Goblin fashion, this thing did not want to shine for me. In fact, I found a little surprise before the Gremlin. Now, Mimikyu is one of those shinies you can never be too sure about because of the lighting in these games, but it was indeed a shiny, and one I was considering catching for this challenge. Mimikyu's shiny is definitely on the grayscale. Is it technically black or white? That I'm not too sure about. But now I don't have to waste any extra time hunting it, because it hunted me. Alrighty, now back to Morgrem. Surely there won't be any more distractions. Surely. Funnily enough, this was another shiny I was kinda on the fence about catching during this challenge. Anyways, just mere moments after that commotion, my actual target that I had been looking for quite some time showed up. Now, again, is this technically a white shiny? Maybe not. But if I give him a little sweet treat, that's definitely a white shiny. Welcome back, General Gardor. The Timeless Woods is home to another shiny I need to catch. But with some time left on my fairy boost, I'll have to come back for it later. Instead, I can head to the back of the crystal pool and into the cave to look for Carbink. This hunt can be pretty relaxing, because all you have to do is set up a picnic in the center of the cave. But it could also be not relaxing, if you can't get the stupid picnic to set up properly. It also might not be so relaxing if for some reason you, I don't know, fell out of the cave. Not sure why that would happen though. Fortunately, if it does happen, the game doesn't despawn Pokemon. Because, of course, the one time that happened to me, when I went back up, it was waiting for me. We've now caught back-to-back fairy types. Although, one might not count. So, let's catch another. The milkiest milk that has ever been milked. Ew. Milcery. When the Indigo Disc first dropped, there were Milcery outbreaks that had a 1 in 200 chance of giving out shinies. It would have been great for me to do this outbreak back then, because there is evil behind the eyes of this little milkman. As you can probably tell just by looking at them, they all look white. Big shout out once again to Scarlet and Violet's lighting system. But they're not. They're actually more of a cream color. Either way, it's really hard to spot the shiny Milcery. Topped off with the fact that this is probably the worst biome to hunt in, because you have to deal with your screen looking like this from time to time. Seriously, how would anyone spot a shiny Milcery with this going on? I'll tell you what, it took longer than I'm willing to admit for me to find this little stinker. But I have to admit, this is easily one of the cutest Pokemon out there. Guys, I have a secret to tell you. Come closer. There's another fairy type I'm going to catch. Also found in the Blueberry Academy is Cotton. And fortunately, this one only took a couple minutes to show up. Wait a second, that thing ain't the right colors. Right you are, but trust. Because if I give it a sunstone to hold, it turns into this. And that floof is definitely white. Alright, I've caught enough fairy Pokemon, so time to change it up. Scatterbug is one of the first Pokemon you can catch. It may be a dumb little bug, but it has an unbelievably good shiny. It's also the only bug type that has this color scheme for its shiny. Therefore, we can spend some time looking for a second one, which I was able to find in the exact same spot. The twins. And I can evolve one of them into Spupa, which also has a really nice shiny that is black and white. Now, I didn't end up getting a third Scatterbug to evolve into Vivillon, although it also has a white shiny, but that Pokemon is evil. Moving on, it was time for me to get a Burb. I love Burbs, and one of the best shiny Burbs out there is Oricorio. Oricorio comes in 4 flavors, and the best of them all is the Fire variant shiny. It has a spot to be isolated right next to Artazon, and any Pokemon that is right next to a town usually gives you a pretty good chance of finding a shiny fairly quickly. Since I found that shiny so fast, I can use the remainder of my sandwich to travel back to Kitakami to look for a little lizard. Oni's Maw isn't the only spot to look for a Salandit, but I find it to be the easiest to help spot the shiny. You would think with such a drastic change in color, the shiny would be very easy to spot. And although for the most part it is, the lighting once again makes the Salandits shimmer, which kinda makes them look shiny when they're not. I don't know, maybe I just have bad eyes. But when an actual shiny showed, it was obvious. So maybe just disregard everything I said. Salandit obviously has a beautiful shiny, as does its evolution Salazzle, but it only evolves if it's female. I caught my shiny, and figured I might as well try and get another shiny in hopes of it being female. I did, but it wasn't. Rather than waste the rest of my life searching for a shiny female Salandit, I decided to move on. The 2 boys I found fill the void in my heart plenty. Remember how we went to that Milcery outbreak and had a really hard time finding it because it's oh so small, and the shiny doesn't change too much? Well, what if I told you there's another Pokemon that fits a very similar bill? Pincurchin. It is in fact small, and goes from this to this. Not a drastic change, but it does definitely look good in my opinion. What's not so good is the fact that hunting this little guy hurt my eyes, because he is small. And what made it worse was the fact that it just really didn't want to show up, taking upwards of 3 hours for this little sucker to appear. I want to say I'm mad at him, but he's just a little guy, so he gets a pass, this time. Right after, there was another electric type for me to go for. Morpeko is by far my least favorite Pikachu clone, and although I love black and white shinies, it's actually one I'm not that much of a fan of. And even after saying all that, it still popped up for me in just about 5 to 10 minutes. Unfortunately, that doesn't really change the way I feel about it. A Pokemon and shiny I do care for is Minior, but hunting a shiny Minior is a lot more complicated than most other Pokemon. So I went to this Minior outbreak in order to give myself the best possible chance of finding one. The problem with Minior is that they always have their shields up, so you can't tell if it's a shiny just by looking at it. You have to use the auto battle feature and wait for your Pokemon to refuse to battle in order to tell if it's shiny. The same way I did with Mimikyu earlier. Or if you don't feel like auto battling, you could just do this instead. Now, you may be wondering how I was able to tell that that was a shiny. And the truth is, I could smell it. No. What actually happened was that I used the new picnic method. In Scarlet and Violet, only 15 Pokemon are able to be spawned in at one time. But if there's a shiny, then 16 Pokemon will be spawned in. So all you have to do is picnic reset until you count 16 Minior in your game. Once that happens, just save and check them all out. I did this and actually went the wrong way at first. So I just reset my game and checked the other Minior out. But now we catch. Alongside Minior, the Indigo Disc brought back every starter, and there's a couple of them we need to catch. Starting with Froakie. Froakie spawns all over the place right outside the Coastal Plaza. It definitely doesn't have the most noticeable shiny, and is a bit hard to see since it gets covered by all the grass, but I was able to find one after about an hour. Now can we all just admit that frogs are dumb? They're nobody's favorite animal. Look how dumb he looks as he hops around. And after evolving it, he's so dumb, he doesn't even hop like a frog anymore. SMH my head. The next starter we're looking for is Agumon, everyone's favorite yellow lizard. Agumon really didn't want to be my friend though, cause it took even longer than the dumb frog. But we all know that this is everyone's favorite starter. All joking aside, Shiny Charizard is goated. And remember in Gen 2 when it was purple? The next starter we're looking for is another fire type. The one, the only, Litten. It's funny because I also caught Litten during my every Pokeball challenge, claiming it was the best shiny for the Premier Ball, even though the Timer Ball also looks pretty peak. But I also said that I was done catching shiny Litten, since I've caught one in basically every video since the Indigo Disc's release. And I'm back again. I can't stay away from this cat, and its god-awful evolution. It continues to haunt me. Anyways, for the first time during our adventure, I made a grave mistake, but followed it up with one of the fastest reclaims ever. And I'd just like to say, there's no way in hell I'm evolving this thing into the Abomination. And I actually have the entire line shiny now. Seeing Litten and Torracat next to Incineroar just makes me hate it even more. How does it turn into that? Believe it or not, there's actually another starter that I'm planning on catching. One you might not expect, Rowlet, the most distinguished gentleman. I always forget Rowlet is both grass and flying type. So I made a grass Sammy. Now, the grass sandwich is not the ideal one to make. There's a bunch of other grass spawns in the savanna biome. And because of that, I ran into something a bit unexpected. A shiny I've never actually found before. Obviously not what we're looking for, but a welcome surprise. Anyways, I decided to find myself a Rowlet outbreak to make my life easier. Rowlet's one of those Pokemon that it feels so wrong to go around killing, but the pain of murdering the owls was well worth it when this showed up. Now, this shiny clearly is not black or white, but just wait. because when I evolve it, now it could be considered both. An underrated shiny starter, if I do say so myself. It does also have some dark green in it still, but I still think it counts. And I know you can make the same argument for other starter shinies like Inteleon or Reboot, but we're just gonna pretend like Gen 8 doesn't exist. And it's so funny for me to say something like that, because next up, I had the absolute audacity to go catch something that's really pushing it. Olives come in many varieties. Some are green, and some are black. Smoliv is one of my favorite Gen 9 Pokemon, and its olive goes from green to black when shiny. Does this constitute Smoliv as a black shiny? Probably not, but that didn't stop me, because I can't read. And what better way to follow that up than with another shiny that probably doesn't count. Skiddo took literally all of 3 minutes to pop up though, so it's not like I wasted too much time. But I'll let you guys decide whether or not I'm crazy for catching these two. Are they considered black and white shinies? Leave a comment and let me know if I'm based. After that little saga, it was time for us to finally head back to the Timeless Woods to catch that other shiny I spoke about oh so long ago. And if you haven't guessed it already, that shiny would just so happen to be Phantump. Now, I've caught my fair share of shiny Phantump, and it's never given me an issue, but I never realized how lucky I was, because there's a bunch of other grass and ghost types here. So, to make it simple, I found an outbreak. It was a Trevenant outbreak instead of Phantump, but both shinies are white, so it's fine. And after a wee bit of time, goated shiny. I did attempt to do my due diligence and get a Phantump as well, but ended up with something a little different. Next on the chopping block was Eevee. Eevee is one of the most annoying Pokemon to shiny hunt, or at least it used to be. Finding an Eevee outbreak used to be one of the hardest things to come by. The first time I hunted it in Scarlet and Violet, it took me 3 hours just to find the outbreak. This time, I found it in about 5 minutes. Except, I got scammed. For some reason, outbreaks can spawn in the olive rolling minigame, and no Pokemon are able to spawn in that area. Very, very fortunately, I was able to get another Eevee outbreak to show up 5 minutes later. And the shiny appeared not too long later. It's another one of those shinies that might be a bit more silver or gray than it is white. But, oh well, at least it's cute. Did you know Haxorus isn't the pseudo-legendary of Gen 5? Even though it gives off the aura of being one much more than Hydreigon? Well, it doesn't matter, because it still has the better shiny. And it just so happens to be our next target. But just like many times before, the game seemed to have different plans in mind.
Say the line, Bart!
Green Gang. Yeah! Well, in order to avoid that from happening again, I found a Fraxure outbreak. And I don't know why, but I had a really hard time with this one. My eyes were playing tricks on me, and I started thinking they were all shiny. Until... Now, Fraxure does have a great shiny, but the real star of the show is Haxorus. I already have a shiny Haxorus though, so I kept him as a Fraxure. And only a couple feet away from where we caught that little guy was the location of our next target. I made a fighting sandwich in order to hunt Hawlucha. Hawlucha has a crazy nice shiny in my opinion, and was super quick to find. It's another one of those shinies that isn't mainly black, but has a decent amount of black in it. So, does it count as a black shiny? Well, to me it does. Tatsugiri has 3 different forms, and thus 3 different shinies. 2 of them are pretty mid, but the droopy form is a completely white shiny, which I think looks pretty sick. Now, instead of rolling the dice and hunting for this Pokemon, I chose to get a droopy form Tatsugiri outbreak. Thank God they fixed these outbreaks. It actually took quite a while for this one to show up for me, but fortunately, it was the correct form, and the shiny sushi also appeared relatively quickly. And with that, there was only one shiny left for us to catch, Satitan. So I found myself a Satotl outbreak, and the shiny popped up within 5 minutes. All I had to do was feed it a little ice stone, and there you have it. I can't believe how many different black and white shinies there are, and to be completely honest, There might even be some I missed out on. I was really on the fence about some shinies, like Copperajah, Paldean Tauros, and Silly Cobra, but ultimately felt like they didn't warrant being caught. But hey, if you think I'm wrong about that, or think I missed other black and white shinies, let me know. And be sure to like and subscribe for more fun. That's all I got for you today. Bye bye.